we had a segment, some weeks. One of our podcast topics were arenas and public versus private funding. And I think you've been able to build this amazing arena called Chase Center, and all that you went through. I think, like you said, most people don't see the ins and outs of how some things work on the ownership business side. So kind of walk us through, how you went about funding Chase Center. What were your thoughts on private? What were your thoughts on public? The pros and cons of both. And what were you thinking in terms of taking it to San Fran versus, what were your thoughts on keeping it in Oakland, and how did you come up with the ultimate plan?
You love to ask a lot of questions in your one question.
No, you're just so good at it. I've heard you explain it before, so I want you to just paint the picture for us, and I want to get out your way.
Let me just briefly say, as far as Oakland and San Francisco, there was no original. Everyone says we had a plan right from the day one, Peter Gruber and me, to move to San Francisco. Absolutely not true.
I believe you. Yeah, I believe that.
No, I'll tell you, I swear to God, it's not true. We went to the mayor of Oakland and I said, what can we do here? And I tried. I had 5 meetings with that mayor at the time. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get, it was like dealing with, I don't even know what word to use. Just completely no response, no feedback, no nothing, like zero. Mm-hmm. And so I said, let's open up let's look at other places, because we're not getting anything done here. And so I went to San Francisco as well, and he was much more receptive. The mayor at the time, he died, of course, but to the whole process. And so we wound up, when it all said and done, San Francisco was an easier path than Oakland. It was just not an obvious thing to do in Oakland. They didn't even come up with any ideas. So San Francisco suggested a location. We ultimately failed at that location on the waterfront. It was a public piece of land. But I quickly realized, and I've always thought this, I know that sports teams are told to go get public money to build stadiums and arenas by the commissioner. And look, if you can, as a business person, you certainly should try. Mm-hmm. And again, maybe certain cities that works, you can make the argument it helps the community. But I got to tell you, for the most part, it's just a lot more work than it's worth, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I would rather, so we immediately from day one, I said, forget, in California, it's not going to happen anyway. We're going to spend years. Oh, by the way, look at the Oakland A's. Here we are 18 years into it. He's got nothing done. Why bother? Let's just do it privately. It'll cost more. We'll have more control over the site, and we'll get it done earlier. Well, here we are in the most difficult place to build in the world, probably, San Francisco. Right. And in 7 years, which is a long time, but 7 years total from beginning to end, we got it done. We built it, and with every time they finally suggested maybe a little public money we could get from this or that, I said no, zero, nothing. And I wanted to be able to say that I didn't take away $1 from police, fire, all the things, essential activities. I love saying that. I love saying we didn't take $1 from those people. And in fact, we started a foundation that gives back, and a lot of it. So that was important, I think, to us. And it was the greatest decision I've ever made, actually, on the team, was to go private 100%. Now, it became an incredibly difficult thing to do because the costs kept going up. You remember the economy was going great in the Bay Area at the time?
Yes.
Production costs were going like this. It wound up costing us twice what we thought it was going to cost. And if you want to see a grown man cry, you could watch Peter and I sit in a room just about crying, like, how are we going to we're going to be embarrassed. How are we going to pay for this?
Yeah, you know how contractors do, though.
You're not that rich. And the amount of money that was involved in this project, all told, was $2.1 billion with the, with the arena. We bought the land, we own the land. We built these office buildings to help defray some of the costs. But that's an investment up front to help do that. Right. It was $2.1 billion in up front, and it was twice what it was supposed to be. And let me tell you something. It is like a very scary thing when you don't have the money, and you've got to figure out how to do that. Mm-hmm. So we came up with what I think is one of the greatest achievements of our ownership in this team. Some of the most brilliant financing strategies to get this done that I've ever seen. And I've been involved in financing all my life. We took a big risk. We raised $300 million from our customers who were fans. In the baseball, they've done seat licenses, but in basketball, it's never really happened.
Right, I remember that.
We did it because our fans love us. We took a risk that they would do us, and that's $300 million of it. It's not a seat license, but it's a membership, like a golf course membership. We pay the money back in 30 years. So it's
Oh,
like it's like an interest-free loan. Think of it that way.
Yep.
And that was a brilliant structure no one had ever done. And one of our guys inside, Marty Glick, who you may know, Andre, came up with this concept, and it was brilliant. So that's $300 million. We then took the office buildings. We signed up Uber, who was a growing firm, and they wanted to be part owner. But we said, well, we want to own those office buildings. But you know what? If you want to buy one of the two, half of it, you can. So they gave us $200 million to own it, half of that. We had paid for the land, all told, 160. I mean, so that got us our land costs back. Think of it that way. There was another $200 million. Then we were making a lot, as the team was getting better, and this is where Andre and Steph and all you guys that performed on the court really helped us. We were able to sell tickets better and better, and sponsorships, and we were going, and in Oakland, our last year, we did about $500 million in revenue. When I bought the team, we were $100 million in 2010. So in 5 years, we 5 times it, which is pretty amazing. Tremendous job by our business people. Obviously, great job on the court is why we're able to do it. And we made a lot of profits, and we never distributed $1 profits to me or Peter. I've never taken a dime, ever, of all the money profits we've made. We have basically, all of it went back into building that arena. So we put, hundreds of millions of dollars of profits into that arena. So that, along with a bunch of debt, we have the largest debt of any team in the NBA, but we did it at the right time, and we got fixed 30-year financing like you do on a house.
Right.
Under 4%. Looks pretty good.
Yeah. It's a great percentage. Now,
so when you add it all up, we wound up being able to pay for this without doing a capital call from our investors and without raising any capital. And people look at me and say, how could that possibly be done? But we did it. So, it's honestly one of our greatest achievements. And that's why other teams, when I hear they can't do it, they need to be more creative. They need to work harder. They need to be smarter.